on board. Um, so good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Dallas Chamber of Community Affairs. Today, our guest. We have a couple. We have Chris Grant, the Division Chief of the Mid-Columbia Fire and Rescue, and then Melissa Napoli. Napoli, thank you so much. I know you can last names can fun, so thank you, Melissa. The Wildfire Coordinator for Wasco County. That's a job. So
Yes.
anyway, we appreciate you both being here this morning and giving us some updates and what's going on. But before we begin, we're going to go around the screen. I'm sure you're familiar with these faces, but we just want to make sure you know everybody on the screen and who they represent. So I'm going to start with Phil Brady.
You usually pick on me last, which is okay. I'm waking up here. Good
Yes.
morning. I'm Phil Brady, Wasco County Commissioner, and now I understand this. We're going to be talking about fires today. Thank you, So look forward, and I'll just repeat one more time, Lisa, because you did not hear me the first time or the second time that was a fabulous cherry festival that you and the county Chamber of Commerce put on. Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you very much, Phil. Scott.
Good morning, everyone. Scott McKay. I'm the community liaison for Circles of Care, and we connect older adults who need some kind of periodic support with volunteers. And thanks to the Trade Festival, we had a table there, and we recruited 2 new volunteers, which is fantastic. One, I think, has already been applied, background check, and gone through the trainings already. So we're really excited about that. So thank you once again, thank you, Lisa. So
I'm excited that you got volunteers. That's awesome. That is not an easy task in today's crazy and busy lives. So congrats. Dan Spots.
Dan Spots, retired as of today, and Lisa echo everything else it was saying. Good work on Cherry Festival. I've been sending around email introductions with my successor, Jacob Anderson, as Economic Development Officer with City of the Dalles. And I'm going to be continuing those introductions and look forward to whatever the next phase in life might bring, besides clearing brush up here, which I will definitely be doing. Speaking of fire management, thank you.
So I can start having you help me with community affairs now that you're retired, right?
That is correct, Lisa.
Okay, awesome. I love getting volunteers this way. All right, Dave Peters.
Chief Dave Peters, Columbia Cascade Housing, Columbia Housing Authority. Just the same I've been saying, Rand Road's going to have its groundbreaking late this month. I think they might already be moving soil pretty soon here. And then we've got a little further down the road, probably a year behind that would be another one in the Dalles, which is going to be 80 units. I think it is over where DeHart's Market used to be. So that will be proceeding here pretty soon too, assuming we get the funding that we're applying for, I think within a week or 2. Thanks.
Awesome. Corliss?
Good morning, everyone. Fantastic Cherry Festival. We had a great quilt show and a lot of people, so we're happy about that. But I'm with Habitat for Humanity and the Senior Center and the library and the College Foundation, and I'm happy to be here today.
Thank you, Corliss. Sue Davis.
Good morning. Sue Davis. I'm the Executive Director of Advancement for the Columbia Gorge Community College. And I also want to say what an awesome job you all did for the Cherry Festival, Lisa. We actually did a fun run, which we're super excited about. It felt successful. We had over 100 runners there. And I emailed Lisa yesterday because I was like, what's the date for next year so we can get it on the calendar? Anyway.
Yeah, no, I don't have it yet. So I'm glad you guys had a great turnout. That is awesome for bringing it back. That's amazing. You guys did a great job. So, Tanya Brumley.
Good morning. Tanya with Northwest Natural.
Awesome. Thank you. Heather?
Good morning. Heather Lands, Communications Specialist at Wasco Electric Cooperative. The only update we have is May is Electrical Safety Month, so we're starting our school safety presentations in the local public schools.
Awesome. That's awesome. Great. Thank you. Robert Wallace.
Hey, good morning, Robert Wallace. My purpose for calling today is a rural landowner, and I've been just like Dan, piling brush and mowing and spraying, trying to get ready for fire season. I also work, I'm the executive director at White RC&D, based out of the Dalles. We do a lot of energy projects throughout the state with small businesses and farmers. And one of the newest projects we received one of the community renewable energy program grants through Oregon Department of Energy. And so the applicant was actually the Wasco County Soil Water Conservation District. And so we're working on these mobile portable power units. And we've got a couple of them set up. One's down at the Farm Service Center right now next to PUD in the Dalles, and it's solar powered battery pack basically, and it's got two level 2 EV chargers on it. And so we've actually got one of those we just placed out at Womack Market, and then one out in Antelope. And the day-to-day is for folks to charge their cars, drive drive on sunshine. It's all solar powered, and then they're there for emergency backup power in the time of any sort of emergency. And these units are mobile, and so we can move them around. And so, but I'm also on the Port of the Dalles and president of Port of the Dalles Commission. I'm chair of the Dufur School Board, so for another few months. And then I'm going to retire from my volunteer roles, as Dan says, and stuff. But my purpose today is really to learn about the fire grants and what funding's available.
Awesome. Thank you, Robert. And a person I have not seen for a while, David Griffith. Are you there? Tell you what, Dave, I'll make a deal with you. Once you put in the chat what's up with you and what your updates are, I'll make sure. But it's great to see you here today. And with that, I am going to turn this over to Melissa and Chris. I've both made you a co-host, so if you do have a power presentation or a slideshow, sometimes it makes it a little bit easier on the Zoom to do that. So with that, thank you both for being here. And I will watch for questions for you as we progress so that we don't miss any as we move along. So Melissa and Chris, thank you so much for being here, and I'll let you take over.
Well, thank you, Lisa. Welcome, everybody. Good morning. My name is Chris Grant, and I am new to the Dalles. I retired out of the Washington Fire Service after 38 years, a year and a half ago, out of the Vancouver area. And for the last year and a half, I was the fire chief over in Umatilla. So being on this side of the Cascades, I've learned a little bit more about the environment and the festive Mother Nature winds that come through the gorge area, and experience a little bit more of the fire problem here in the eastern side of the states. Obviously, my experience coming from the west side, we're seeing more fire behaviors on the west side of the states, both in Washington and Oregon, that we haven't really seen before. However, the fire conditions here in the gorge have been here ever since the gorge has been here, with the wind and the environment. However, we've got some great programs. As the Division Chief Fire Marshal for Mid-Columbia Fire and Rescue, one of my programs that I manage is the mitigation program. And I've got a fantastic partner working with Melissa, who is a wildfire coordinator for Wasco County, who is from this area, who's got a great amount of experience on the gorge and the fire situations here. So I was introduced to her early in my appointment here with Mid-Columbia, and we've partnered together to do work throughout Wasco County and the region. And our goal today, one, is to meet new friends, but also to talk about an event that we have coming up on June 5th. So we're excited to be here, and Melissa, I'll let you take it from here.
Thanks, Chief. Melissa Napoli, Wildfire Coordinator for Wasco County. I came into this position last November, so I'm relatively new to the position. I moved into this position from a planning position with Wasco County. And then prior to that, I was with the city of Maupin. I managed their fire programs for them and did a little bit of code enforcement, which was interesting. So I have been in Wasco County since 2001. My family's been here now 4 generations. So my kids all graduated from the Dallas High School. So I'm just starting to consider myself a local. I am very happy to be in the position I'm in right now. I love this work, and I get to do it in the best part of the county. So in 2023, a group of partners from varying agencies, ODF, OSU, and Wasco County, as well as the Oregon State Fire Marshal's Office, got together and wrote an application for the Community Wildfire Defense Grant Program that's offered through the U.S. Forest Service and the USDA. In 2024, Wasco County, as the fiscal agent, was awarded $5.9 million to implement the programs that were addressed in that application.
Melissa does have
Projects.
some internet issues where she's at. So
Oh.
hi, Melissa.
Am
Yeah,
I
you
back?
froze a little bit. Yeah.
Darn it. Where did I leave off? I usually call in for these meetings, but ironically, they did a controlled burn near my neighborhood yesterday and they burned up my phone system.
Oh no, it doesn't sound like it
So-
was controlled.
It was out of control in that one spot. So I'm not sure where everybody left off. What did you hear last?
5.1 million for Wasco County is what I heard.
Okay, 5.9 million.
9 million. That's
but
my
it's
hearing.
A slight difference, 5.9 million for Wasco County to implement the programs in the project application. And so those
I'm on Starlink. I get it totally. In fact, my own connection is a little bit shaky. I'm going to drop video. I wasn't sure if that was Melissa or me. I'm going to drop video.
might be spent on
Okay.
projects.
Oh, wait, hold up, Melissa. So we would love to have your face, but maybe take the audio or your video off so we can hear the audio, because sometimes that will increase your bandwidth because you're freezing up. And she froze up again. At least, it's called life.
Okay, so I can pick up a little bit. So
Okay.
Melissa is a wildfire coordinator for the county, and she manages a grant program here that we're successful in with our partnerships with the Oregon State Fire Marshal, the United States Forest Service, the USDA, and the county here. And she manages the mitigation work with this grant, and the current work that is taking place is in South Wasco County. And Mid-Columbia Fire and Rescue is currently working through a grant to help mitigate fires and mitigate properties to reduce the risk here within the region of the Dalles and in North Wasco County. So throughout the county, we are able to provide assessments of people's properties to take a look at risks and to help those property owners reduce the risks, either through mitigation controls such as trimming back trees or pruning, removing vegetation, removing hazardous or dangerous trees, as well as doing roadside clearing and those types of different efforts to reduce the potential for fire spread here in our region. Hi, Melissa, you're back.
I am. I'm so sorry. Rural internet. I'm going to put a few key points from my program into the chat so that people have some takeaways from that today. You're doing a great job, though, Chief, if you just want to keep talking about what I do.
Well, like I said, when I met Melissa, she's awesome in what she's doing here. She introduced me to our regional partners here, and we work closely with the Oregon Department of Forestry and with the Oregon State Fire Marshal, and our industry partners from OSU or Oregon State University Extension and the Wildfire program there, our different partners here in the scenic area, all with the goal to educate and help property owners understand the risks that are associated with wildfire and how to reduce those risks on your property. And with the grant funds, those help us bring in either fire department crews that are on contract or contractors, arborists, and such to come out and help mitigate properties that the property owner doesn't have the ability to. For example, dangerous trees that are close to structures, or trees that have beetle rot or other things that have created them to be fire hazards. We can go out and through this grant reduce and remove those hazards in our community. But I think the biggest piece of what we provide here is education to the individual property owners. As we know, and as everybody here this morning recognizes and understands the fire threat in the county here and in this region all through the gorge, that every year there is a wildfire that takes place. In most cases, it burns in the open and takes up the fuel and vegetation throughout this region that is rich with topography. And as we continue to build properties and homes and structures into the interface, is what we call it, the wildland urban interface, it creates a whole nother set of problems. Homeowners are now living in the woods and beautiful properties. However, as Mother Nature is in charge of everything here, she has the potential to, spread fire through these properties. And our goal is to, reduce the risk to our individual homeowners and again, just share that education.
Okay, I have two questions. One is from Robert. Is the funding for these fire grants secure just because of everything that's going on in the federal cuts?
Great question. Very fair question. So far to date, we have received every reimbursement request that we have made.
Awesome. That's great. Good job. Great work. And then Phil, you have a question.
Yeah, thank you. The ability to help homeowners deal with dangerous trees is an incredible offer, because I know those are expensive things to cut down. I've done a couple on mine. Are there restrictions or qualifications for a person, like income levels or abilities, or can just say, here's a tree, take it down, please?
There's not, to my knowledge, an income restriction. The Oregon Department of Forestry could answer that question better. But what happens is you register for the program or call ODF here in the Dalles to request a forester to come out. They do an assessment on the specific tree. It does need to qualify as a hazard tree. So it can't just be, a tree you don't like. And then they will perform that work. And then there is a dollar limit to that. I want to say it's $2,600. So I think those are the limitations. It must be a hazard, and then there's the budget restriction.
Thank you.
Dave Peters.
Yeah, for either one of you. I think I filled in a form and said I was interested in, I believe, this program about 2 years ago. Are we going to get notified, or do we have to redo that? At least I think it's the same program.
So unlikely that it's the same program, my program. I wonder if it's something like something that you're doing for defensible space, Chief. Is that maybe
yes.
That one?
Yeah, so the program here with Mid-Columbia Fire and Rescue, we received a grant separate from the grant from Wasco County and Melissa's program through the Oregon State Fire Marshal. And I guess for the last year and a half, Mid-Columbia Fire and Rescue has received feedback, and on our website, people can go in and request a evaluation assessment of your property. So I believe that's what you're speaking about there, Dave. So I am the new manager. I came into my position here in February of this year. We just hired on our wildland crew, and beginning next week, we're going to go out and start the assessments of the properties that people have registered for. So what that entails is the fire department will come out on site. For example, Dave, we'd come out to your house, we'd make an appointment. We'd come out and we'd walk around your property, and we would take a look through a program that Survey 123 through the Oregon State Fire Marshal. And what that survey does is it allows us to walk around your property to take a look at the risks of fire spread. We know that fires are going to happen, but our goal through this program is to reduce the risk of it spreading to your constructed property, to your homes or your outbuildings. So with this, we evaluate the risk. For example, the question about trees. If there's a hazard tree within 10 feet of a building, we can bring an arborist in. It's paid for through our grant with the Oregon State Fire Marshal, and I can remove that tree if it is considered a hazard to the property. Now, a lot of the trees that we do come across on people's properties just need to be limbed up. As we take a look at a tree like the Christmas tree, for example, and you're putting the presents underneath and you get all those branches in the way, those are called ladder fuels. So a fire that starts on the ground can easily spread to the underside of a tree and travel up the tree. So one of the easiest ways to reduce the spread of fire is to limb up the trees, to remove those ladder fuels up. So if a natural fire does take place, it burns the grass and the duff below, and then it continues on without impacting the tree. So it's as simple as cleaning out gutters and removing, combustibles near the home, such as, firewood piles and things like that. Because our biggest threat in this region is ember casts. So any of the embers that are coming off, getting into the wind and blowing, and they can travel for miles and start small fires elsewhere. So that's what our goal is to help the property owners clean their properties by removing these risks. So if ember fallout does occur on your property, it doesn't find a fuel source to continue burning. But we have two different grants that we're working on. Melissa's program this year is focused on South County, and she'll touch on that a little bit. But the grant that we have here with the Oregon State Fire Marshal allows us to work on properties here out of Rowena and the Dalles, and basically in our region here up towards Mosier, up on the west side of the Dalles and the south end. A couple of projects we're working on. I did an assessment yesterday out at the WIC treatment plant on Reservoir Road. So we're going to take a look at our priorities, which are high life hazard and critical infrastructure, to reduce the risk to those properties, as well as helping our individual homeowners with the assessment and work that we can do there.
Great. Scott, you had a question?
Yes, I just was wondering about, do you have any communication relationship with insurance companies? I believe my understanding is that they are requiring, they have a lot more requirements as far as in order to get insurance for those homes that are out in the more forested areas. And so any relationship with insurance companies?
That's a great question. As we all know, living in this region, especially those that live in the forested areas, we received a letter from the state of Oregon that talks about the fire risk map, or the hazard map, right? The intent of that map was to, I think, educate homeowners that you live in a high fire hazard area. However, the biggest concern is the insurance companies, right? That they're going to use that data or that information to either not provide insurance or to, raise rates on those insurable properties. So our grants are not directly in relationship with any insurance company. However, homeowners need to talk with their insurance companies or their agents to see what programs will reduce the risk to, I guess, reduce the rates, right? So one of the things here in the state of Oregon is the Insurance Services Office, which is a national ISO rating. They rate individual fire departments on their capabilities and limitations. So one of the requirements to have insurance, or fire insurance, is a very small portion of your homeowners, right? So the fire insurance is a very small portion of it. The fire insurance rating that the state uses as a reference, or most insurance companies use as a reference, is based on the capabilities of the fire department. You live within 5 miles of a fire station that has a certain number of volunteers, or is a 24/7 staffed fire station with career firefighters. You have certain equipment, you have certain amounts of hose, fire hydrants or fire water availability are all different things that insurance companies look at when they determine the amount of your premium for fire insurance. So directly, our programs here are not tied in with any insurance company or any insurance provision. However, through the program that we're going to be starting here this year with community education, our goal is to eventually bring in somebody from the state of Oregon through the insurance commissioner's office to discuss, the wildfire risks and insurance and how those premiums are determined here in the state of Oregon, and how the legislature or whatever the legislature is working on to reduce those insurance concerns that people have.
Thank you. We do have a question, and this, please define South County and what about Mid County? Where do those lines lie?
Sure, I can take that one. So in terms of my project area, it starts just south of Friend and then goes down to Pine Grove, goes west to the Sportsman's Park, which is just a little bit west of Wamak, and then east to the outskirts of Maupin. So that, in terms of South Wasco County and my project area, those are the boundaries of this particular grant. Anything north of that would be something covered by other grants, potentially through Mid-Columbia Fire and Rescue. But the county has also just recently applied for, it would basically be round 3 funding through the CWDG program to address issues in Rowena, outskirts of Mosier, and then the Chenoweth area. So the grant is very specific to demographic. And so we had to apply very strategically for specific locations.
Bill, go ahead.
Real quick, outskirts of Mosier, is that west side or east side of Mosier?
Would be south. So 7 Mile Hill area.
Yeah. Okay.
And our current grant, Phil, with the Oregon State Fire Marshal, allows us to work through Rowena and up to Mosier. And anything here in this region, Mid-Columbia Fire and Rescue is taking the lead on trying to help people reduce the risks on their properties. There's several fire departments in this region, the scenic area, ODF. Across the river, we have the Department of Natural Resources. That's where our airplanes come from and our helicopters in this region. So we're all in this together when it comes to fire response to different incidents here, because these fires grow so fast and burn, thousands of acres. So our goal is to reduce that. With the grant here allows us to do roadside mitigation. Majority of the fires that have happened here since the data has been recorded have been accidental. Over 80% of the fires are human caused, out of control burning, people leaving burn piles unattended, wind comes up, grabs embers, or it spreads to combustibles, people towing, trailers or having vehicle incidents roadside, people throwing cigarette butts out windows of moving vehicles. There are some fires that are arson that are intentionally set, but a majority of the fires here are preventable with a little bit of education and just people considering the risks. Mother Nature, as we know, through lightning and other things, wildfire has been here ever since the creation of Earth, and it's healthy for the environment. It helps regenerate the environment, and so it does have its benefits, but as we get closer into these fuel sources, then it impacts us as humans even more. So that's the goal of the grants, are to reduce those risks, right? Through roadside abatement, dangerous tree removal, helping people understand, the potential of a fire spread from outside your property lines into your property, and just try to protect people and their properties. So that's a goal here, but education is the most important piece.
Thank you. Tanya Brumley.
Yeah, thanks. So it just sounds to me, and I'm just trying to clarify, it just sounds to me like there might be a huge gap between, so North County sounds like there's got some good coverage, South County, but the Middle County where there's, wheat, and we know all about fires over here, and then like Friend where there's forests, and yet it's not ODF. So I'm just curious, and these are all volunteer fire departments. There's nothing tax-based. So I'm just curious, how does that gap get filled?
Thanks for asking. So we're consistently working with the Petersburg Fire Department. I actually was hoping to wrap them into the round 3 funding application, but they weren't quite ready to go yet, in order to do some roadside fuels reduction work. So we recently had a meeting with Wasco County Soil and Water Conservation District and the Petersburg Fire Department, which I understand is now contracting with Dufur Fire Department to have some coverage for both places, which is great. So we had a meeting with them to talk about roadside fuels reduction work. They are working with Soil and Water Conservation District to be able to not only remove fuels 100 feet on either side of strategic roadways there, but then to replant those areas with fire-resistant plants and reseed those areas. So there is consistent work happening. It's not covered in the current grant, but that doesn't mean that we won't be addressing that in the future. So these grants are announced in the early part of the year. And then I think we'll have one more round of funding. That's what we're hoping for. It was supposed to be a 5-year grant program with new funding announcements every year, but they've reduced it from 5 to 4 after the first part of the year. So we have one more chance to hit some of those extra areas, and we certainly intend to do so.
Thank you.
Yeah, and with the grant money, obviously, when we look into these open areas, are mostly rangeland or farmland that have, that have little built environment, right? We're not looking at housing developments or commercial areas like that. It makes us we have to prioritize when we go out and we do work, if you will. We understand that the Oregon Department of Transportation has a huge budget shortfall, so they don't have the capability or the personnel to go out and mow these roadsides and things like that. So we're looking at the high risk areas where we have historically seen fires start, to try to focus on those areas to reduce, restarts or a continuation, but also to reduce the risk. For example, what we saw down in Los Angeles, what we've seen in Colorado, what we saw down south near, Southern Oregon off of I-5, west of Salem up in Detroit Lake areas, is these continuations of fires that get into these residential properties and explode and burn down multiple homes. So if we can put a fire break in or reduce the risk in our communities, by reducing that fire spread potential, that is going to keep our built community from being involved. And that's what the mitigation efforts really are focused through these grants, are to reduce those pieces, if that makes sense. A wildfire that starts in a wheat field, the Petersburg fire department are a great bunch of volunteers. They're hardworking farmers that respond and help each other out by getting out and mitigating these with their pickup trucks and their plows and their tractors. And we work in conjunction with them to reduce these risks, and we all respond to the same fires. So we're all in this together. But yeah, the risks out there that Tanya brought up they're huge. I mean, but it's there's so much county and there's so much risk on the side of the roads that bringing people in to provide the education to our traveling public, also to work with ODOT to try to get them to reduce and do some mowing in some of these areas is really going to help us reduce that risk. But yeah, the firefighters from the unprotected areas, unfortunately, fires do burn through there and there's nobody to respond to them. However, if we don't control those fires or mitigate those fires, they're going to now travel into our built environment or into our communities. So it's an all hands effort. And the goals, again, with these grants are to reduce those risks to where civilization is, where our people inhabit. So
Okay, you can go forward. We don't have any questions at the moment, but I expect Dan Spots will come up with one soon. If I can, yeah, he's normal, but
Yeah.
If I can talk real quick here on
Yes.
Thursday, June 5th. And Lisa, I sent in a flyer. I don't know if you have that available. We can show that on the screen.
I don't know because I went to another email. So hang on a second. You keep talking. I'll see if I can find it.
Okay. So meeting with our partners with Melissa here as the wildfire coordinator for Wasco County, with Chief Dodd in the Oregon Department of Forestry, and with our partners with the Oregon State Fire Marshal, we've decided through our grant funding that we need to really put together an effort to educate the community. So on June 5th, here at the Granada Theater in the Dalles, we are hosting an event called Living with Fire. It's a wildfire safety forum and film night that is going to allow us to help educate the community about the risks of wildfire, the mitigation efforts that are taking place with our forestry service partners and other professionals with soil and water, and the work that Melissa is doing, but an opportunity for our community to ask questions of our fire and emergency services experts, to meet some of the firefighters, and to ask questions of a panel of experts. And some of the people that are on our panels after this movie. So the film, The West is Burning, is going to be the foundation of our evening. And this film talks about the history of forest management and different issues that have led to the catastrophic fires that we've seen in the West. It's going to talk about the different changes in our forests and our watersheds and our communities in the rural and urban settings. So our panel is made up of industry experts. We have Chief David Jensen here with Mid-Columbia Fire and Rescue. It's going to talk about the built environment. Nathan Beckham is a 20-year strategic planning coordinator with the Oregon Department of Forestry. Maren Palmer is a wildfire crisis landscape program manager for the United States Forest Service. Lindsay Cornelius, Columbia Land Trust, East Cascade Oak Partnership Management. And then Simone Cordery-Cotter is a fire risk reduction specialist from the Oregon State Fire Marshal. That's our panel of experts that are going to be able to answer questions after the film. In the film is really going to talk about the environment we live in the forests. And these experts are going to talk about how they're reducing the risks, how they're managing the forests in our environment. And then afterwards, we've got industry experts that we've got different tables for individual Q&A and handouts and educational materials. And these experts come from the United States Department of Agriculture, from the Hood River Wasco County Executive Director of the USDA, Lisa Ben's going to be there. Emily Huth from Wasco County Conservation District, Chase Duncan from the Oregon Department of Forestry, the Planning Division Director from Wasco County, Daniel Doherty, is going to be there. Ted Palmer is Code Compliance Officer in Wasco County. Melissa, myself, and others are going to be on hand to meet with our community and be able to talk about, one, the grant programs and how we can help each other, get through fire season every year. So that's the intent of this program here. It's a family event. The Granada Theater is a great partner. We're going to show the film there, refreshments and Smokey Bear, Sparky the Fire Dog. We're hoping to have the goat guy there with some goats and some of the fire equipment. He'll be there. Fantastic.
He will be there.
So just having a community safety fair specifically dealing with the wildfire risks in our region. And the goal is to have this as an annual event. This year, we're going to talk about the environment we live in. Next year, we're going to focus on risk reduction at the built environment. And then this will continue on, hopefully on an annual process for us here to just connect with our community and discuss these risks and how to reduce them.
Great. Phil, you have a question.
We've been asking you so many questions. I hope we're not pushing out your program, so don't feel you have to answer them. I'd like to ask about the infamous fire maps now that they're somewhat in the rearview mirror, and so we don't have to. It's not as hot a topic. But can I take the point that even though they were contentious and everything, they did serve to, in our case, help us get these grants?
Commissioner, I can take that one first, and then I'll flip it over to Chief Grant. The fire maps were post grant award. So they came out after that, but they were in response to the 2020 wildfires. And I think our federal government, our state government, and certainly our locals are far more aware of fire risk and hazard than we were before 2020, when so much of our state burned and so much was lost. So while they may not have been a direct cause for the grant that we received, I think cumulatively this awareness is freeing up some funding to address the needs. Chief?
I believe that the fire maps did a couple things. One, they piqued everybody's interest, right? And things that, living in this environment, people see smoke, they smell smoke, they know that fires occur every year, but a lot of us just go on about our daily life. We don't think about the individual risks on our properties. But I think the letter that came from the Forest Service and from the state of Oregon said, hey, we're all in this together. And everybody's afraid of the insurance, right? Of not being covered. And there's nothing the fire departments can do about the insurance industry except for try to improve, more personnel, more equipment, strategic planning, putting fire stations in locations to serve a majority of the population. So that's what the fire departments can do to reduce the risk in our communities. But it all comes back to the education piece. Obviously, the insurance industry is it's there to protect people, but it's for a for-profit industry. But we take a look at the historic disasters in this nation, the wildfires that occur every year in Southern California, with the winds and the fire, the situation. The Los Angeles Fire Department is probably the best equipped, most educated, experienced fire department dealing with wildland fires, yet a huge portion of Pasadena and Los Angeles and Malibu, they burn every single year. Florida, I don't even know how that is still on the map with the hurricanes in the south with the tornadoes and everything. And those drive the insurance rates around the nation. But we see them on the news. There's news coverage, and are we getting our news from reliable sources? Are we getting it from social media? So our goal with the education process is, one, hopefully to reduce the fear, but to be able to help our homeowners and our property owners protect their own properties, to reduce, that potential of having to rely on the insurance company to replace things.
If I may build on the point you're talking about, that we're all in this together, it's being reflected at the state legislature in terms of looking for funding mechanisms for fire prevention and fire response, and moving away from this was something that the forest products companies were being assessed for and taxed for on their production, and moving to several models are being put together that would essentially put a tax on everybody in the state, either a small property tax or addition to the bottle tax, something like that. But the sense of it is, as you're saying, everyone is affected by fire, whether we're close to it or downwind from it.
Right, absolutely. And the business model of insurance companies, which I am no expert and I shouldn't even be speaking of, but they base it all on risk, right? So it's insurance is risk reduction. But we have more abilities here through the funding mechanisms in the program that Melissa's managing and that we manage here at Mid-Columbia, is to help people reduce that risk by bringing out mitigation crews to help people in need. and it was asked earlier about, I think Scott asked about, is there, funding, is there, is it based on age or capabilities? No, it's all based on risk. And we partner with the homeowner or the property owner to go out and reduce those risks through a variety of programs, hauling brush, cutting brush, limbing trees, providing information to harden a structure, by putting screens up on some of the bird block or the ventilation areas of a home, cleaning out under decks, things like that. So
Go ahead, Scott.
as far as my understanding, having talked to an insurance agent, that the criteria they use is not based on the state, but they have their own insurance criteria as far as identifying risk, and it gets pretty complicated. And do the insurance agents know that when they give a homeowner their bill that maybe has been doubled, that there's also this, you can also, maybe find out about this program that might be able to reduce your insurance in the future? Because I would think an insurance agent might be helpful for them to provide an alternative to help the person to reduce their insurance costs.
right, there's through insurance, through the fire service, and this isn't a wildland topic, but residential sprinklers reduce the potential of fire spread in a home, holds fires in a small fire. It either could be extinguished or held in check until the fire department got there. But sprinkler systems in people's homes are expensive. There are some communities that have really pushed and said all new residential properties will have sprinkler systems installed in, residential sprinklers. We've got a provision of the fire code here, depending on where you live, water supply and access for the fire department to get to your home in the event of emergency might require, if the grade of the road, the width of the road, or the limitations of water to put out a fire in someone's property, for us to get through our site team through planning and the building department and that, the fire department may require a residential sprinkler to reduce the risk to your family and those in the built environment. But looking at our homes, we build homes that are combustible, right? For the most part, we make them out of wood. But the new construction features with the hardy board or the cement board, siding, metal roofing, having fire resistant plants, these are all things that I think insurance companies may take into consideration, of the risk. Are you reducing the risk on your own property? And hopefully there are provisions there, but there's so many different insurance companies. For example, my insurance company on my home in Vancouver, when I moved here into Oregon, they wouldn't write me a policy. They said, we're no longer writing policies in Oregon. And I thought, but I've been a customer of yours and have never had a loss. And they said, that's just a company policy right now. So those are, that backside, it doesn't make sense to me, but I understand it's, a for-profit industry.
Before I let Dan ask a question, I'm actually going to jump in. Melissa and Chris, both of you mentioned fire-resistant plants. Is that something you have a list of somewhere so that we can help educate our residential and our commercials as they're redoing all of their, the landscapes and all of that, so that we can better educate our whole county on what's a better resource for that?
Absolutely.
Awesome. I love those answers.
Go ahead, Chief. Do you want to talk? I'm going to find the link for the OSU fire resistant plant guide, and then I'm going to put it in the chat.
Perfect.
Oh, perfect. So yeah, Lisa, we can get you information on that, but we take a look at, for example, behind your Chamber of Commerce building there, we see a variety of deciduous trees. But we also see some decorative, evergreens in front. One of, I guess, the most explosive plants that we see around people's homes are the awesome but explosive arborvitae.
Mhm.
You know, if people love their privacy. Arborvitae grows quick, it grows tall, it spreads out, and it provides that privacy buffer.
Mhm.
However, these trees are so thick that the duff or the dying needles and branches that are up underneath create a continuity of flammable and combustible fuels that allow an arborvitae tree to go up rapidly. And around the 4th of July, it takes a sparkler or an errant firework, and this row of arborvitae that has been there for years now is like a long fuse. And if the arborvitae is close to your home, now it will transfer from the trees down that brush pile next to your home, and now your home is on fire. And if we have a difficult time getting there, that fire is going to spread from your home, possibly to the neighbor's home, to the neighbor's. And then we get into an environment that we've seen many times here in the gorge, where we lose 3 or 4 homes because of that continuity of fuels. So yeah, great question about different plants and what people can do. And our partners at the Oregon State University Extension have created some information that Melissa's putting in there. So
Yeah. Thank you. I will be glad to share that, and also the resource for the other website. Those are great resources. I quickly scanned them. So, and yes, I know I have a few trees at the chamber. Working on it. We're just taking them down one at a time. So
my recommendation is keep the bark dust or the beauty bark or whatever you call it, the mulch. That, you know, you would think that you know, it looks great. However, it is very combustible, and you know, an errant cigarette, you know, being dropped in it, or you step on a cigarette, you think it's out, it can smolder for hours until it gets enough oxygen to where it really takes off, and it can spread. So exactly. All those things that we look at, and when we do our mitigation walk around with people in their homes, we talk about, here's information on the plants. Here's, you know, we recommend pulling the bark dust back or the mulch back from your home, putting in non-combustible things such as river rock or different rocks, or just leave it mineral soil. So yeah, landscaping is a huge part of risk reduction.
Right. Well, we will definitely help share that. And I'm going to give Dan a couple minutes to squeeze your question in, sir.
Real quickly, and I might have missed it earlier. Do you have like a standard guide for rural homeowners that would talk about specifications for exterior fire suppression, like a generator, a tank with sufficient capacity? If you're trying to set up a system like that, what should you be doing? What type of pump? What type of capacity? What type of sprinklers? How far from the house? That type of thing.
No, great question. In fact, if we go back, I want to say it's probably within the last 15 years, they had significant wildfires in the interior British Columbia. And the insurance companies actually did mitigation efforts during those fires by taking out portable tanks and pumps and rainbird sprinklers and set them up around properties to be able to reduce the risk of the embers falling in combustible materials. So there are, the fire department doesn't have a guide on that. And I think that's something I'm going to be attending the Oregon State Fire Marshals Conference here next month. But I'm going to bring that question up because we've had several people ask. We've seen on the news, people have talked about, you know, their backyard swimming pool and a water pump and setting up sprinklers. We are in one of the, Dan, I don't know if it was you, but someone talked about the generators and the portable power units. Power, you know, the water pumps, you know, have to run off of something. And if it's a small gas tank and you evacuate your home, that's only going to run until the fuel is gone, right? Something that is on the power grid, we know that the power goes out often, especially during wildfires or during red flag warnings. Power companies may turn off power. So if you have a system that doesn't have its own independent energy source, then it's just going to be a system that isn't very effective. But the goal is to, you know, keep your gutters clear of debris and leaves, you know, pull back the property. And if you have concerns, is to get out and sprinkle your yard. You know, water on a roof, a burning ember falling on wet soil or wet grass, or water that's, you know, freestanding a little bit in your gutters is going to extinguish that ember. But there are programs out there, and the internet is full of answers. So, but yeah, you need a water source that's sustainable, and you need a power source that's sustainable.
Operation that people can pull together. Appreciate that answer. Thank you.
Right, but we'll get some information on those, and we'll post them on our website, Mid-Columbia Fire Rescue, so mcfr.org. And if you want a home assessment, and Dave had put in for it, so Dave, I'll be reaching out to you. But mcfr.org has that questionnaire where people can sign up for a home visit by the fire department to look at some of these issues, and to share the information on landscaping and mitigation efforts that we can partner together to reduce the risk to your property.
Absolutely. And for residents who are outside MCFR's service area, the Oregon State Fire Marshal will do the assessments as well. If you go to osfm.com, you can sign up for an assessment there as well if you're outside of MCFR's service area.
Thank you. Well, we are at the top of the hour, and Chris and Melissa, thank you so much. This information is great. I grabbed all the websites, and we'll get the flyer. I have it, but we'll get it out there a little bit more and put it on our kiosk and all of those things and send it everywhere, so that, because there's nothing like an educated community, so that they can come together and be able to do these things effectively. So with that, everybody, be respectful of your time. Thank you so much. And again, Chris and Melissa, thank you for all the great information. This is amazing just to have this at our fingertips. I really appreciate this. And all of you, we're almost to the weekend, so have a fantastic weekend. Remember that tomorrow night is First Friday in downtown The Dalles. This weekend is the Artist Studio, which is in Hood River, all down the gorge actually. But we have 4 artists right here in The Dalles that are participating, so check that out. And then there's at least 5 other events this weekend. So I challenge you, you will not be bored. I promise you on that piece of it. So thanks everyone, and have a fantastic weekend.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you, Lisa.